When you sign up at Work Money, you could win $50,000. With the average renter paying around $2,100 per month, that means you can have rent covered for a whole year and more. So you can be more. And when you're more, that means you get more. And more. Ooh, but not so much of that. Sign up at Work Money. Get money-saving tips. Skip the rent. Get more rich. Sign up at workmoney.org/more-rich contest for your chance to win $50,000.
Hey, it is Ryan Seacrest here from Power 96.1. I'm like you. When you hear a song that's a hit, you know it's a hit. It moves you. It's an instant addition to your life's playlist that lives in your head. All day on Power 96.1, we play the hits and we connect you to the artists who create them. Whether it's the Jubal Show in the morning, me in the midday, we keep you connected to the world around you. And we all live our lives on air every day just for you. Listen to Power 96.1 on your radio, with Alexa, Google, online at power961.com, or wherever you are on the free iHeartRadio app.
Episode 449, How Women Can Negotiate Better with Kathryn Valentine.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are talking about negotiation. And we do a negotiation, that's a hard word to say, episode every year, whether it's on your salary or negotiating money off, because it is it's one of the biggest impacts you can have with your finances is having the skill of negotiation. But there is a stigma around women negotiating in the workplace. So we're talking with Kathryn about, is that a myth? Is it fact? How can we work around it? What are best practices? All that stuff. This is such a good episode.
I find this topic to be so fascinating. And it's another one of those ones where I like to have the reminders of how can we do this? How can we hone the skill? How can we do it better? And Kathryn brings some really fantastic research and statistics and findings that really help to give us the knowledge that we need so that we can hone the skill set that we need to keep doing this and reminding ourselves that we can do this and it can go successfully.
Yes, but first, this episode is brought to you by the letter T. T. So many words start with the letter T. One of those is to, the number two. To be, to do. But mostly the number two. Like, I bought 2 copies of Jen and Jill's book so I could get a free copy of their investing course. That's right. Did you know that was a thing? If you buy 2 or more copies of Buy What You Love Without Going Broke, then you will get access for you and your bestie. Obviously, that's who we think you're buying the other book for. We know you're not buying 2 for yourself. We're going to give you and whoever you bought that extra book for access to our investing course, updated for 2024 and 2025. At the time of this recording, the updates for 2025 have not come out, but totally updated, and it will help you on your journey to going from an investor, not considering yourself an investor, to somebody who has over $100K invested and feels confident about their allocations, where their money's invested, all of that. So if you do not currently feel super confident, then about your investing, I can't help you with confidence on all of your stuff, but definitely head to buywhatyoulovebook.com, purchase 2 or more copies of our book from Amazon, or if you want to support indie bookstores, bookshop.org, and submit the form on that page with proof of your 2 purchases, and Goldie will send you the login information for you and your friend. So buywhatyoulovebook.com. And this is brought to you by the letter T.
Well done, Jen. You didn't even have that written out and just
I had
off
nothing
the
written.
cuff. But this is exciting that you and a friend would get a book and the investing course. Both of you.
Because
That's
when
so
you
great.
figure out and you align your spending with your values, you're probably going to have a little bit more money. And what are you going to do with it? Invest it so you can get more of what you value in the future. That's all we're trying to do.
And
We're
help a
just trying to
friend
help you
out because we're about community. Help us out, help another friend out. We're just all about friendship.
Yes. So let's get into this interview with Kathryn. She's the CEO of Worthmore Strategies, and she helps organizations advance female talent, and she helps women negotiate for more. And she is such a hoot. Love talking to her. So much valuable information. Hope you enjoy.
Let's do it.
Kathryn, welcome to Frugal Friends. We are super excited for this conversation about negotiation.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
This one's so necessary. We've had a couple of conversations about negotiation in the past, but I don't think it can be overstated, and especially the unique perspective you're bringing today. I'm looking forward to this. So to kick us off, Kathryn, can you tell us specifically related to women in negotiation, what are some of the beliefs that you see we have about this topic that might be outdated or just flat out untrue?
Oh, I love this one. So let's see. At this point in time, I've reviewed about 13,000 pages of like very dense academic research on this. And so my goal here is to be able to make that so concise that you don't have to go read the 13,000 pages of academic research on this.
Thank you so much.
The one that stands out, I'd say there's two. One is this belief that as women, we're not good negotiators. That is false. That is false, and that is withheld in the data time after time after time that is false. We are better negotiators than men when negotiating on behalf of others. So on behalf of a team or children or elderly parents or anyone else, we consistently get better negotiated outcomes than men. We aren't as successful when negotiating on behalf of ourselves. And that is mostly not because of talent, but because of information. It's because the information that you can get when you Google, how do I negotiate, is largely written for a male audience. It just doesn't come with that caveat. So that's what we're going to try and unravel a little bit today, because women should be able to have negotiated outcomes that are just as good, if not better than men with the right information. The other thing that is kind of I would say like holds women back from negotiating is this fear of backlash. And a lot of times people say like, oh, that's just in your head. Research would support that that is not just in your head. Like that's a real fear. And we can, talk about it a little bit if you want to and where it comes from. But if you feel that, it's because your spidey sense is very well in tuned and it's trying to protect you. And again, like we have solutions to that. But don't let somebody tell you it's just in your head because chances are it's probably not.
That's
such a helpful distinction.
Good to hear. Yeah, because there is, the backlash thing I've heard a lot, and a lot more people are being open about how, hey, I tried to negotiate. I read the articles, I tried the things, and it didn't work for me. And it actually maybe sometimes even like put me worse off. So that's really good to hear. Like,
I lost a job over this. Like, I lost a job doing this wrong, which is why I do this now. But like, it's very real. And I worked with somebody recently who she negotiated in a way that we wouldn't recommend. And as a result of that, a lot of the backlash we see now is it's very nebulous, right? It's a little harder to put your fingers on. And so in her case, what happened is instead of she used to do an analysis and present to the executive board. And then after the negotiation, her boss came by and was like, don't worry, I'll present for you now. And so she continues to do the work, but he now stands in front of the executive board. She's not allowed in the room anymore. And again, like it wasn't an explicit conversation. It's just these small things that happen that can, sidetrack you a little bit.
Does the research suggest that there is greater risk for backlash for females with negotiation than there is with males?
Oh, this one, I love this question. So the research on this one I find particularly fascinating. The research suggests that you're at a higher risk of backlash when you're negotiating non-gender conforming things. So what that means is that, and we see this, men are at a higher risk of backlash when they're negotiating like flexibility. And women are at a higher risk of backlash when they're negotiating more traditional career things like pay or resources. Now, that's without intervention. Like what we're going to talk about now is their solutions to this. This does not have to be this way. But if all we had to go off on was what you Googled, then that's kind of the situation we find ourselves in.
I think it's helpful to know the launching point, though, and to help normalize maybe some of the, as you said, spidey senses that we might be feeling, to know there is research to suggest that what you're feeling could be based on some degree of accuracy. That doesn't mean you have to live there, but knowing where we're coming from, what we're at greatest risk for, can be really helpful in knowing how do we respond then.
Yes, if you need someone who's read 13,000 pages of research to tell you you're not crazy, I'm telling you, you're not crazy.
That's what it'll take for me. Yes, books and books.
Okay, so I want to know, what are some of these wrong ways to do it that receive backlash? Or like, how did you lose your job negotiating? Like, what are these things that we need to be aware of so that we don't experience this? What are the wrong ways?
So the wrong way would be to follow the advice in the Wall Street Journal last year that said, just go in and say, I deserve to be paid more. It's not a particularly compelling argument, but also that's a really good way to tick someone off, especially if you identify as a woman. What I did in my particular case was I realized on Friday that I had an opportunity to negotiate. I spent the whole weekend, buying the books, underlining them, whatever. I wrote a script. I have never been accused of under-preparing for something. And I went in on Monday at 10 a.m. and tried to negotiate. And I didn't realize it, but I was using an advice that had been perfected by and written for men, right? It's men saying, well, this worked for me. It should work for you. Like, it will work for you. But one thing that we didn't factor in, especially not 10 years ago, is like, I don't look like you. And so it's not going to work that way for me. And what ended up happening was I ended up offending the person that I was negotiating with completely unintentionally, and then being told that I was no longer a culture fit, which, as we know, doesn't go particularly well when I was an intern trying to get a job. And so as a result of that, the internship no longer made sense. And as a result of that, per company protocol, I was escorted out by security, because if anyone chooses to leave or is told to leave the role, they are escorted out by security and deposited onto the sidewalk.
How
Jen's face is just like,
I know.
It's okay. I survived.
And thrived. So what are in 2024, when we're recording this, like, what are these things that are still being told to people to do that are not working?
Yeah, to go in and say, I deserve to be paid more, like, not working. It's not an effective strategy for anyone. It's particularly not an effective strategy for marginalized groups. If you were to, and this is the part that honestly really gets me, like, this is what keeps me up at night. If you were to be a well-intentioned, and my research is in women, so let's talk about that, but a well-intentioned woman who wanted to negotiate, and you were to Google, how do I negotiate? The vast majority of the resources that you see are not for you. But they don't come with that caveat, right? So it's a little bit like, I live down the road from Augusta. It's a little bit like going to the Masters and giving all these men golf clubs made for a 5'4" woman and saying, good luck, have a great time. Like, that's what we're doing to women in a lot of business areas, but particularly negotiation.
Are you finding then that the tips given to women should be different than the tips given to men? Like, one pair of clubs will work for one person, they won't work for another. Like, do we kind of have to be aware of our age, our gender? Like, what are the factors that you think might play into this?
So the one that I study is gender. And what we found there is there's sort of 3 research-based solutions that we would suggest. Of the 3, all of them are best practice negotiations. It's just that if men do them, they may have slightly better outcomes. If women do them, we get slightly better outcomes and virtually eliminate the risk of backlash, because men don't carry that same risk. The benefit to them is not as large.
And does this, whether you're negotiating with a male or female supervisor? Is there a difference?
Okay, so Jen, this is the most popular question I get asked, and I love this because when I started to study it, I expected to have to write two different sort of manuals, if you will. Like, this is what you do if you're negotiating with a woman. This is what you do if you're negotiating with a man. What the research shows is that the risk, like what happens is actually based on how the world perceives us. Women have biases too, right? And so this is perpetuated by women just as it is perpetuated by men, which means that there's one sort of advice on how you should negotiate based on how you present yourself to the world, regardless of whether you're negotiating with all genders, frankly.
When you sign up at Work Money, you could win $50,000. With the average renter paying around $2,100 per month, that means you can have rent covered for a whole year and more. So you can be more. And when you're more, that means you get more. And more. Ooh, but not so much of that. Sign up at Work Money. Get money-saving tips. Skip the rent. Get more rich. Sign up at workmoney.org/more-rich contest for your chance to win $50,000.
Okay. I want to know. Now I'm dying to get into it. What are these strategies then? So for us women, we are predominantly female listenership. What are the strategies that would increase our chances of success? If we've talked about the ways that it doesn't work, what are the ways where it can work for us?
So 3 strategies, and I would say, you said your listenership is predominantly female. If there's anyone of other genders listening, I would keep listening because chances are you're going to negotiate with a woman at some point in time. And so it's helpful to understand these dynamics. The 3 things are, number 1, think holistically. Number 2, ask relationally. And number 3, discuss collaboratively. Would it be helpful if I kind of like stepped into each of those?
Yeah, please.
So the first one, think holistically, is when you're thinking about what to negotiate, I would ask yourself, what would increase my impact? What would reduce my stress? What would bring me joy? It doesn't just have to be one thing. In fact, actually, we have a list now of 76 things that we've seen women successfully negotiate. So there's a very broad spectrum of what you can go after. Think broadly. So in many cases, sure, you'll want to negotiate for probably some compensation thing, but what else can you ask for that would make a meaningful difference to you? So that's the first one. The second one is to ask relationally. So this is based on research out of Harvard showing that if your ask is both legitimate and beneficial, then you can virtually eliminate that risk of backlash we were talking about. What I found, and I don't do coaching anymore, but what I found when I did coaching is that that's really hard for working people. If we're just so busy, thinking about how to do that is like mind-boggling and no one has time for it. So we actually created a formula, which is past performance plus future vision plus the ask, and then stop talking. So Jill or Jen, what's something that you want to pretend like we're negotiating?
Oh, I got one. My mom's trying to get a job in the medical field.
Great.
And
I love this.
yeah, they want to pay her a very specific amount because that's what they do. This is their pay scale. And I'm like, you need to negotiate this.
By the way, I agree. When someone gives you a job offer, they expect you to negotiate most of the time. So what I would say in this case is there are reasons why they gave your mom that job offer, right? So past performance for her would be just emphasizing those reasons. So as you know, I have experience in X. I don't know much about this world, but I have experience in X. And I believe that I can use that to help us reach our quarterly targets or our annual targets or whatever it is that, is the reason why they're hiring her. In order to achieve that, I wanted to talk to you about being paid at the top end of the band because I have never been an average performer. I wanted to talk to you about being able to attend this training. And I wanted to talk to you about, and now I'm just making things up, Jill, but, and I wanted to talk to you about getting an hour a week with X person for the first few months so that I can get up and running, right? These are things that, compensation is one of them, but other things that will help her be more impactful in the role. And then the next part of the formula would be to ask, what do you think? And then we can start to have a conversation, right? Maybe they say, hey, budgets are locked through the end of the year, so we can't do this, but we can do this. So that gives your mom then a chance to step in and say, okay, I understand that you can't quite meet where I would like to be on, base salary. Can we make it up with a signing bonus so that I can come start working for you? Okay. Well, now we're having a conversation about other places we could go, right? Does that make sense? Does that formula make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of
Yeah.
what to come to the table with, this kind of blueprint. And I think it says, I'm coming with ideas, not just I deserve, so give me, but reasons, kind of these receipts for why this will be advantageous to all of us. I love that collaborative word that you've described, that this isn't just for me. This isn't just me trying to grab and take, which never feels good for anybody, even business owners, but to come at it from this perspective. Although you haven't gotten to the relational point, but I am kind of like seeing how it's massaging that as well.
Yeah. I have one more question about this point. In 2021, we had an interview with Rich Jones, and he talked about this concept of bring your receipts. So keeping track of things that you've done for your companies, which is hard for women to just like keep track of our accomplishments in general. So like that's a foundational piece. But I think what's hard for me to sometimes understand is how my quote unquote receipts are benefiting these parts of the company that I don't fully understand, like your Q1 goals, or how do I relate it back to something that's going to pique management's interest, like something that's going to feel like it's a mutual beneficial experience. If I don't fully know, especially going into a new job, if I don't fully know what that other side really wants.
It's a fascinating question. I would say there's two things. One, the job description is a great place to go look and remind yourself of why the company hired you. Because why they hired you is typically what that future vision part is. It's because we need to onboard 3 times as many people as we used to. It's because we need to reduce inventory. It's because we need to, increase sales is kind of an easy one. But it's the people that sit in places that aren't necessarily tied directly to revenue where that job description can be extra helpful. Like these are the operational goals that I'm delivering on that help this company run. The second thing I would say is, particularly in the job interview process, it's really helpful to ask that question, Jen, of it's important to me that I'm delivering impact in the way that matters to the company. Can you help me understand how this ties to larger goals? And the great part about asking that question is, one, it illustrates to them that you care, but two, it gives you the words that you need when you're negotiating later on.
Yeah.
Double duty. We love
I would
those.
think also, I would think in that vein, action-based promises speak louder than like a percentage or an arbitrary goal number like promise would. Like I have shown that I can make like X sales calls per hour and yada yada, like performance and action-based would speak louder, maybe.
Right. And to your point, I think what would be even more interesting is I've shown that I can bring in Y deals, right? Because the number of calls you make is input, not output. But what is to your point, quantitative output? If you can quantify it, then we know you're ahead of the game. And in some roles, it's going to be an estimate, and that's okay. Don't let the fact that it's not exactly perfect stop you from saying about 90%. Okay, that's fine if that's as much as we can get with the data that we have.
Nice.
What did you want to say about the relational piece, Kathryn, when it comes to negotiating? Because this is something that, as I hear you all talking, even what Jen's bringing up, part of me goes to, okay, but if we come with too much data, is that going to feel too aggressive, too on the offense, and potentially disrupt relationship? As much as I hate to say that, because people just want women smiling. And I think that that's worth pushing back against, but also we could inspire backlash. So how do we bring in the relational piece to tether it?
So the relational piece is just, if you use that formula, it's there. The kind of underlying current is letting people know what the impact of your actions is on the larger good. And that could be the team, it could be the company, it could be your department. What I learned when I was coaching women is that women were always thinking about what the impact of their actions were on other people. You just get credit here if you say it out loud. Like it's already in our brains. We're just going to say it out loud, and that's going to make everything go more smoothly. Jill, to your point about data, the other thing that I've noticed is it's important that you have your data. It's not necessarily helpful, regardless of your gender, if you overwhelm somebody with it. So, hey, I have it here if you want to go through it, but what it's telling me is X, Y, and Z. That way it's not a tsunami of numbers coming at them.
That makes sense.
And then the third step we were talking about here is to discuss collaboratively. Do you want me to go into that one too?
Yeah, please.
So if you make your ask and then you say, what do you think? That's what I call a conversational volley, which is that now we know it's the other person's turn to say something. The reason why we did this is because we found that in an attempt to make your negotiation partner feel more comfortable, women would actually start negotiating against themselves. So I worked with a woman who said, and I want to talk about working remotely 5 days a week. I mean, I could get it done in 4. I could probably do it in 3. And her manager had said nothing the entire time. And so we want to volley it to the other person. And then we're going to start collaboratively deciding how we can get to where we want to go. And so we're taking the old mindset of a negotiation is you versus me. There's a winner and a loser, and we're throwing it out. And we're taking the new mindset of a negotiation is us versus the problem. And the problem is anything that prevents the employee from delivering their best work at their lowest stress level. It's a problem for the employee. That's a problem for the employer because they're not getting as much as they could out of you, right? And so that's kind of now we can do some trade-offs. One of my past clients was trying to negotiate being offline at night and had this conversation. What do you think? And what she heard back was, well, that giant report that we give to the whole company is due on Friday mornings. And it's like, wow, that is a relevant thing. Like, yes, that's great information. That's a great point. Okay, what if I can be offline at 6 p.m. every night except Thursdays? And then her manager was like, yes, I can agree to that. And so now we're just having a conversation where we can be open about what we value and about the information that we have, because we have different pieces of information, and we can start to trade off amongst those things. So if you think about Jill's mom, I'm sure the first thing that she'll ask for is base pay, because we want like that. We get comped year on year. We want that. But if they can't do it, okay, now what can we trade off on? Can we do a performance bonus? Can we do a signing bonus? Can we do, this conference that I've really wanted to go to? Where else can we go to find value that actually works for both of us?
Yeah. So you said there's over like 70 things outside of base pay that people can negotiate for. Like, what do you find are people have the most success with those peripheral things?
So people tend to have the most success with things that very clearly benefit both parties. And so to the extent that you can show how it benefits both parties, you're winning. The one story comes to mind of a woman who was negotiating a promotion, which isn't outwardly maybe as obvious how that helps both. But she was in sales. And so when she went to a sales meeting with manager on her business card, people didn't believe that she could do what she said she was doing. They didn't think she had the credibility within the company to do it. And as soon as she got promoted to director, all of a sudden her conversions tripled because people believed that when they saw director on her business card, that she could do what she said she was doing. And then they didn't have as many hesitations. And so I think, again, when you can draw that direct line of, if I'm going to go into sales, I need to be able to show internal credibility. A director title will help me do that and will help me land more sales. Like now we're on the same page with things. I've had people negotiate IVF benefits. I've had people negotiate car allowances, 401k stuff, a lot of bonuses, raises, more people on their teams. So one of the things, and I'm happy to go into this if it's helpful, but there are significant gender gaps in compensation and resourcing outside of just base pay, which is what we talk about a lot. One of them is that women are generally given team sizes that are anywhere 25 to 40% smaller than their male colleagues to get the same work done. And so people on your team might be something that's advantageous to negotiate.
I would have never thought about that. That's insane.
That's why I have a list of things for you, Jen.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy because I have seen so many of my friends in positions where they are doing two people's jobs, and like
very common.
All they want is to do one job. Like So that is interesting. How can we start to open our eyes and recognize opportunities for negotiation? Because it's easy. Yes, you're negotiating a new job offer or you're negotiating like a promotion. Like, how can we start to keep our eyes open for these mutually beneficial opportunities for negotiation?
So I would say they tend to come, you just mentioned one, a job offer. Also, when you've had a huge win, you had more political capital that you can use in this negotiation. So you just landed a giant client. That is a perfect time to negotiate more people on your team to serve that client, right? Those types of things. Another one I would say is when there's been a meaningful shift in the immediate world around you. So let's say your boss announces they're going to leave. That might be a good time to negotiate, especially if you would like to step into that role, even just in their interim. Let's say that another team member, Jen, to your point of like people doing two jobs, if a team member leaves, it's a pretty good time for you to negotiate because more work is going to get thrown on you. You might as well ask for more resources or more reward to do that work for. One thing that happens, just popping to my mind, one of the things that happens quite a bit is I have people say, well, like now's not a good time to negotiate because the company's doing layoffs. That's not necessarily true. Because if the company has laid off your boss, your chances are at least 50%-ish less expensive than your boss. So if they're going to ask you to do your boss's job, doing it, you get a 20% raise, the company's still saving a ton of money. So there's different ways to think about things like that. The one I would say is a common misconception is people think that annual reviews is the time to negotiate. Please hear me when I say this, that is not the time to negotiate. Because by the time annual reviews have rolled around, if you walk into your annual review and you ask your boss for something and you surprise them, in a lot of situations, they're not in a place where they can say yes, because most companies end up front running all of that by making budgets due 3 months before annual reviews. So your boss is in a position where inherently they have to say, I don't have the authority to make that decision right now. Let's talk again in 6 months. And so what we always encourage people to do is think of your schedule a mid-year check-in and think of it as if it were your annual review. Hey, I want to talk to you about this promotion. And then if they say no, you say, well, what do I need to demonstrate to prove that I'm ready for that by the time annual reviews rolls around? They'll give you 2 or 3 things you need to do. You go do them. And then when annual reviews rolls around, they already know you're going to ask for it. So they already budgeted for it. It just makes it, you're speeding up the cycle. It makes it a lot easier to get a yes in that conversation.
Do you have any specific tips for people who work in some traditionally, it feels very gridlocked in the way you move through professional growth? I'm thinking teachers and nurses at these very large establishments where it literally is, no, at your 10th year, you receive a 3% increase. And then from there, it's 0.05%. And it seems to just be related to the time that you've been here, maybe the degree of education that you have, and that's it. You're a cog in the wheel. I talk to so many people in these spaces and they feel so deflated by conversations about negotiation because they're like, yeah, that's great for everyone else. It's not for me though. What would you say to that?
100%. So I was a teacher. I only made it for a year. Turns out I wasn't that good at it. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean about this. Maybe it doesn't feel like there's as much wiggle room. What I've seen people effectively do in that situation is really think creatively about what they can ask for. So when I was a first-year teacher, I knew I couldn't negotiate my salary. Or maybe I could, but I was under the impression I could not. And so what I negotiated was more time with the lead teacher because I knew that if she was in my classroom more, it was going to make me better faster. And that was going to save me time. So I wasn't going to be working as many nights and weekends because an hour from her was worth 10 of my hours just in terms of knowledge, right? So what else can you negotiate? Are you pregnant and the walk from the parking lot beyond the parking lot is kicking your butt? Okay, well, can you negotiate to have a parking space towards the front for a little while? Can you negotiate? I mean, to your point, sometimes that pay is associated with education. Can you negotiate that they will sponsor you for an education program? Can you negotiate to have a little bit lighter of a teaching load so that you can get your master's in whatever? Can you negotiate that they will recommend you for X, Y, and Z fellowship? All of those things. I've even had women negotiate to like, be the teacher that speaks at the conference, because then that allows them to go to the conference for free. There are things like that I think you absolutely can negotiate. It's really just, you have to get more creative, I think, than some of us in business need to be.
Yeah, I think recognizing that there's plenty of non-monetary opportunities to negotiate. It doesn't always just have to associate with a raise. Sometimes it is flexibility, resource training, that sort of a thing. I know we're talking a lot about kind of negotiation within a job, and a lot of this has to do with maybe working in the more corporate or business world. But to throw a curveball at you, I'm curious if you've got any other thoughts on the types of opportunities to negotiate, maybe for our people who might own their own small businesses, or they're not working at all. They're just kind of looking for opportunities to strengthen their negotiation skills. Like, where else can we be aware of opportunities to negotiate?
Well, let me take those two groups separately. Okay. So for entrepreneurs, we have an opportunity to negotiate anytime we're in front of a client or a vendor. As a thought, one of the best negotiation things I've done as an entrepreneur is I set up a board of advisors. A board of directors is a legal entity. You need lawyers and blah, blah. A board of advisors is not. My board of advisors were two mentors that I adored and I like to spend time with, but also it meant that when I was negotiating with really big clients, I could say, ooh, that's a lot less than we've typically charged. I'm going to have to put that one in front of my board of advisors. And then a lot of times I could come back and say, like, the board of advisors isn't liking X, Y, and Z, and I don't think they're going to approve it. Can we work on this? Right. So it gave us sort of a common enemy. But it also allowed me to be a little bit protected because I was new at this. I didn't know what I was doing. For other folks who want to negotiate in other ways, I mean, the great thing about negotiation is it happens to you all day long, right? So you go to dinner, you order a glass of wine, you actually don't like how it tastes. That's a negotiation now. How do we send that back and get something else that you do like? You go to a hotel, they put you next to an elevator on a floor where there is a field trip. How do we negotiate our way out of that? Right? Anytime you're feeling less than satisfied, like anytime you feel that feeling, I think it's a good opportunity to say, okay, what about this can I negotiate? Because chances are you influence and control a lot more than we originally assume.
I love that, because so often we will just kind of like grit our teeth and bear things and then be bitter about it. But by just positioning ourselves, changing our mindset to let me exercise this power that I have, the worst I can get is a no, but with the skills to do it well, I'll get more yeses more often.
Well, and Jen, the great part about what you just said is if you negotiate in this way, the worst that will happen is actually a no. It's not, hey, we're going to escort you out by security. It's not, hey, we're going to take away your opportunities. It's not any of these things, right? It's actually just a no. And that's okay. When it's a no that doesn't come with backlash, that's fine. Everyone does this whole like women are scared of no things. Darn right we are. And there's a reason why, which is that for us, it historically hasn't just been a no. It's been a no with other repercussions. And so in this world, we can let it just be another fact of our day.
You know what else? Of facts of the day
is a fact of my day.
We don't have to be worried about
darn
it.
Darn right, I like it. The Bill of the Week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
Kathryn, every week we invite our listeners and our guests to share with us their esteemed Bill of the Week. And we would love to hear yours today.
Mine's very embarrassing. I was delighted to pay a bill for a tree branch removal because I have been going down the rabbit hole on your past podcasts, and it made me think about the things that I was paying for that I felt like I might be paying too much for. And it turns out I was paying too much for homeowners insurance. I was paying 2 times as much as I needed to because of this one tree branch. So once I get the tree branch down, I qualify for a different package that's the same coverage but half the price. So
Wow.
I'm excited to pay for that tree branch because it's going to save me a lot of money.
And how did you find out it was the tree branch that was increasing your rate so highly?
So now I'm getting very nerdy. Okay, so I went into the bills that I was paying and I sorted them for the most expensive, and I just started calling. And I started at the most expensive and made my way down the list. And when I called the most expensive, she was like, "Oh gosh, this is very expensive." This was my insurance person, like the insurance carrier. And I was like, "Yeah, can you tell me why?" And she goes, "Oh, well, the drone report from 3 years ago shows that you have overhanging structure." And I was like, "I didn't even know they do a drone report." I know. And so she sent me a picture of the drone report, and it looks like there is a tree growing out of the middle of my house. Like you can barely see the house. Whereas in real life, the tree is very high up. It just has a lot of leaves, but it's not a particularly heavy thing. And so we could get it removed without damaging the tree relatively inexpensively because it was apparently it's a tertiary branch. I've learned a lot about trees.
Yes. You become an arborist and an insurance negotiator and adjuster and wow, so much.
So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind
so
of
great.
all wrapped up in a tip for us as well, just to be able to look into. I mean, even just call your insurance provider. What are the factors playing into this pricing? Are there things that I could do to lower this rate? Man, you could find out there's been drone footage taken of your place.
Apparently, we were also paying, if you want to get real nerdy, we were also paying a couple $100s a year in uninsured rider, motorist, something, which when I asked, I was like, "What is that?" And she was like, "It's in case someone's in your car that's not in your family and you get in an accident and that person is uninsured and the person you get in an accident with is uninsured." I was like, "Well, that feels like a lot of ands. Too many ands for me."
Ands.
No one's
Sounds
getting
like
in my
Uber.
car. That's what I've decided.
Yeah, I'm not
It's
Ubering
just
anyone.
me.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It does sound like
Thanks so
something
much,
you'd need in
Kathryn.
Florida. Though.
Yeah.
That does sound like
I know.
a car. Actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, yeah, I've
we
heard that
need
before.
that.
That's a Florida insurance. Yeah.
If you all listening have a bill that you want to share, if it's about lowering a bill, if it's about becoming some sort of expert in biology or any other of the sciences, or you're just Bill hanging out and you want to tell us what life is like, we'd love to hear from you. frugalfriendspodcast.com/Bill.
When you sign up at Work Money, you could win $50,000. With the average renter paying around $2,100 per month, that means you can have rent covered for a whole year and more. So you can be more. And when you're more, that means you get more. And more. Ooh, but not so much of that. Sign up at Work Money. Get money-saving tips. Skip the rent. Get more rich. Sign up at workmoney.org/more-rich contest for your chance to win $50,000.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
Pew, pew. All right. Now we will share the same question we will answer. What's your most successful negotiation? And maybe it's traditional. Maybe it's a little non-traditional. I don't know. Kathryn, what would you deem as your most successful negotiation?
I negotiated 18% off my beloved home. I love my house. I love my house. And that was a nice chunky savings that made it possible for us to live here.
Wow.
That's it.
Now
Yeah.
you got me thinking of all the things that I've negotiated that I love.
Right?
It's
a good feeling where you're like, I can't have that. Oh, wait. If I think creatively, I can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Creatively. Like I think that's the key word is think creatively.
You've probably
Yeah.
negotiated on so much too. I mean, goodness, it's what you're an expert on. But when you can negotiate something of such high value, that 18% is a massive amount of money. It sounds like not only do you love your house, but you have freed yourself up in a lot of ways financially to do more things that you love,
and it was a good lesson that we don't all value the same things, right? So for the people that were leaving, money was important, but actually the most important thing for them was flexibility, because they were balancing buying another home and 2 kids in school, and when school ended and when they could move and when their elderly parents were okay, like all of these things. And so us saying, hey, we'll close anytime in the 6-month window, we'll move anytime 6 months after that, you tell us, was worth a lot of money to them, which was great because we had a lot more time than we had money.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I love,
good.
I was going to ask
cool.
what got that 18%, but yeah, that's amazing. Jill?
What about for you, Jen?
Oh, you go first.
We do negotiate on a lot of things over here. I would say our most recent, I'll go less high monetary impact to, we ran into a situation on vacation recently where our room was not what we expected it to be. And it did cost me a ton of time to try and go back and forth with the third party that we booked through and the people on site at the resort themselves. But by the end of it, we walked away with one of the best rooms with a swim up pool plus $200 travel credit because I wouldn't quit. And it felt more like a fight than a negotiation, but it is what happened. I remained calm, cool, and collected the whole time. I'm learning to be relational. I was collaborative in the sense that I did not leave them. They wanted me to like go elsewhere on the property to be making my phone calls. And I was like, no, it's going to happen right here.
You ain't
and
getting
you're
rid of
gonna
me.
watch it all happen right in front of you. And this will also be your problem. So we'll have to collaboratively find the solution.
Because
I
now
don't
it's
know if you
our
recommend
problem,
it, Kathryn, but it is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I will work on the problem too, but so will you. All right, Jen.
Okay, so I have so many instances. So like I'm now thinking our first home purchase, we literally had like 3 weeks to get the down payment and we just didn't have the money. So we negotiated that they'll pay the closing costs and we'll just increase the amount that we pay for the house by $5,000. So that, we're paying for it, but like to the mortgage company, So that was something that allowed us to get our first home, and that home was a dream. In my last like 9-to-5 job, I negotiated for an increased base pay, but I would also negotiate. I would ask for conference. Like there was a conference I was already going to, I was already paying my way, but there was a conference on the front end of it. So I had them pay for me to go to that extra conference. And it was easy, yes, because it was very aligned with, helping that website's like content, and I would already be there.
Oh, Jen, what are we saying? We play good cop, bad cop all the time. To your point, Kathryn, about having a board of advisors, that I would say is the benefit of having a business partner and the book deal. We got an incredible book deal because we can be just stone-faced and ask for more and more and more. But now we've blocked ourselves into a corner by whatyoulovebook.com because we negotiated such a good deal that now we got to sell this book. So now that I've plugged us.
It's too high. But I thought you would bring up our very last negotiation that we're negotiating with a advertiser, like advertising network. We've done this twice for a higher percentage of the rev share. So there's a standard rev share, and we just asked for a little bit bigger piece of the pie. And both times they said yes. We're 2 for 2.
Well, and that's an interesting one because the bigger you make the pie, the better it is for both of you, even if you're getting a little bit more of it.
And that was our thing. It's like we put in the work to grow. So give us a little more so that we don't have to do other things to make money and we can focus on this and we both win.
How great was that? That was the perfect relational ask.
Wow, we're learning. And Kathryn, if people want to learn more from you, because you've got so many great tips, tell us where they can find you.
Thank you so much for this. Has just been such a pleasure to come on and talk to you. For anyone who, if you want to get that resource, that 76 things we were talking about, we've made that free to everyone. So you can just go to 76things.com and you can download the list there. And then I make, most of the money to do this research is through speaking. So if you're part of a women's organization who needs a speaker, negotiating is one thing that we do, networking is another. Please keep me in mind. It really helps us get this research to more women by being able to be part of those conversations.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathryn, for being here.
Thank you.
I very much look forward to looking at that list of 75 things to negotiate. Even though I can't negotiate anything else from Jill for our job, I really hope that maybe I can take this and in the future, if the book does well, Jill will let me negotiate for maybe a few more benefits in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that we needed these skill sets with one another. Although, that is true. We have negotiated with one another. I don't know how you could be in business for this long and not get to that point. But I like it best when you and I get to combine forces and negotiate with outside entities.
Mm-hmm.
That's very fun for me.
When we get to
sometimes
up,
be good cop, bad cop.
Yes. That's a great thing about having a business partner is playing good cop, bad cop. But I loved Kathryn's idea of having a board of advisors. Brilliant. Nobody needs to know who your board of advisors is. That is so official sounding. Sounds so good. It doesn't bring up advocate the scaries like lawyers do. I will be taking that one for sure.
I mean, we don't advocate for lying. Definitely have people in mind who are your board of advisors. But yeah, that can buy you some time.
It could be your mom.
It helps me to say, I have to talk to my business partner about that, or I got to talk to my spouse, and just more time to even think through, what do I want here? How do I want to leverage it? Anyways, thanks everyone for listening. We just love hanging out with you. And we also love reading your very kind reviews like this one from Jenna D13 titled The Best. It is 5 stars. You knew that already. I love listening to Jill and Jen. Oh, wow.
Oh, she got you first.
I know. I love listening to Jill and Jen. I also live in Florida and my name is Jenna, so I feel like I fit right in. Yes, you do. They make being frugal sound so doable and even fun. That's the goal. When I think I know all the budgeting tips, I learn new ones. My husband and I have made so many changes because of the tips I've learned from listening to this podcast, including switching our savings account to a high yield savings account, starting a Roth IRA. Thank you so much, guys. P.S. I listen on Spotify, but I downloaded Apple Podcasts to write this review. Happy early 1,000, meaning 1,000 reviews, because that was a goal of ours a couple months ago.
Yes, Jenna. Thank you. You can also leave reviews on Spotify. That's too. But I mean, I did really want to get to 1,000 on Apple Podcasts, and you all pulled through. You pulled up and you pulled through. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for leaving a review. And if you haven't left a review, if you're listening to this, we would love to hear what you think about the show. If it's positive, if it's not nice, then this show is called How to Money. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We love Joel and Matt.
They're friends
leave
of
nice
ours.
Things. Leave nice things
nice
on
things
their.
to them too.
Yeah. But take a minute to
Oh,
leave
wow.
a rating, a nice rating and review on our show and their show. It helps potential new listeners know what the show is all about.
Bye.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Okay, Jen, update for
Yeah.
you on my Florida life. So
I love your Florida life.
yeah, right.
I killed a cockroach
You
with
get
my
a
book
front
this
row.
morning.
I killed a cockroach last night with a shoe.
Oh,
That's just normal living.
Yeah.
This is next level. You've heard
I
about the
had to-
chickens, right? I've talked
yes.
about the chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And we figured out that we believe that our neighbors own them because the one day I went outside trying to figure out where are these chickens going, who owns these,
chickens?
and they were in our neighbor's yard, like fenced in. So like there they are, didn't have to walk far. That's who owns them. Well, we were just away for the weekend and came back, and the mulch in our front yard, like around our garden beds up against the house, was just strewn about like a big windstorm kind of came through and pushed all of the stuff up onto the sidewalk. Either that or some sort of medium-sized animal. I wasn't quite sure. Eric looked back on the security cameras and it was the chickens. I was thinking maybe it was coyote or something or fox or who knows what.
So this was on the outside
Chickens.
of your fence. This wasn't
Right.
in
Yeah.
your
Not in
backyard.
our fencing
Okay.
yard. It was just in our
Okay.
front yard because we haven't
Because
seen the chickens
can
kind of
jump over fences.
yes.
Yeah.
We saw it in their backyard. So we were just assuming, okay, it's theirs. They must be bringing the chickens into the yard at night. That's how they're surviving through the night. I don't know. But they're just roaming and they're coming over to our property and digging. These little jerks are just digging
Oh, yeah.
and throwing
Chickens are
the mulch.
savages.
And now every single day they've been coming over and digging in the mulch. And Eric and I don't know what to do about it. Like part of it's like, okay, you're probably eating the cockroaches and mosquitoes. So that's probably good. But also you're making a mess. And we had put down landscaping carpet before we put down the mulch and has really helped with weeds and stuff. But now they're digging down into the carpet level. So now we're just getting like carpet strewn about. And so Eric took a picture of it and sent it to the neighbor asking, are these your chickens? Just to kind of be like, okay, maybe your chickens should get back into your yard, but also so that you know that they're in our yard. And they responded, no. So we don't know whose chickens these are, but they are wreaking havoc on our house. So now I have this dilemma of, okay, do I keep hunting and assuming that it's somebody else's on our road, but that it just, I don't think it is because every morning I hear it cock-a-doodle-doodling outside of my window, which yeah, there's no other houses other than the person that we texted. Or do I say, you know what, these are mine now then. And I just create a coop in the backyard and at least get to enjoy the eggs. But there's also a rooster.
Wow.
So I don't know. That's scary.
Wow. I don't know. I don't know how to help you.
It's a Florida dilemma.
It is a Florida dilemma.
Some people have guessed that maybe people, because we do live like right on a nature preserve, that maybe locals did have it. They were told that they can't have them and just came and dropped them off in the park, which could be possible. Yeah. I guess I
What
could
a
call
dilemma.
like animal control, but what if it is somebody's chickens? Or what if the neighbor's lying to us? What if they are the neighbor's chickens, but they didn't want us to get mad about it? So they said no.
They would not lie to you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, if anybody has like chicken rights knowledge,
what we
let
should
us know.
do. They are surviving. If they are indeed wild chickens, their survival skills are insane because we do have
chickens are
coyotes and
insane.
foxes.
Yeah, I guess these chickens in particular might be a little more insane, but gosh, on the level of insanity, it goes dolphins, chickens. Yeah.
Chickens are not nearly as smart as dolphins, though.
No, but they are way more savage.
So true.
When you sign up at Work Money, you could win $50,000. With the average renter paying around $2,100 per month, that means you can have rent covered for a whole year and more. So you can be more. And when you're more, that means you get more. And more. Ooh, but not so much of that. Sign up at Work Money. Get money-saving tips. Skip the rent. Get more rich. Sign up at workmoney.org/more-rich contest for your chance to win $50,000.